Oh, hey, last video we talked about wording and content within your health and safety policy. And you know what? It's very important. It's important to define what you mean throughout your whole entire program. I'm talking about having definitions within your health and safety program. Different words mean different things to different people. And to make sure that your readers are actually understanding what you're talking about and what's going on in your program, it's important to have definitions. So in this video, let's have a look at the importance of having definitions in your program and why. So come on. So there are some important reasons as to why you want to have definitions within your program. One of them is geographical and jurisdictional differences. Now, take for instance, I live in Alberta and we define work that may harm someone as dangerous work, but immediately to the west in British Columbia, it's defined as unsafe work. Two different jurisdictions where workers are back and forth between the two and they have different terms for the same thing. One of the other things that you want to consider is that different areas have different descriptions and different ideas and thoughts on things. Now, further to what I said is we have the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety here in Canada, which is our go-to reference for a lot of different things. And they often define it as any work that would endanger a worker. So kind of neutral, leaning towards dangerous. Federally in Canada, any federal employee would look at it as dangerous work. And immediately to the south in the United States, they'd refer to it as dangerous work. But some of the different reference material within the United States, or some of the different websites, such as union websites that you may go to for information, would often define it as unsafe work. So make sure that understanding where all of your employees work or all of the people within your organization work, and you may have to consider a definition that works across the board for everybody. Just a thought. Another reason why having definitions is important. So let's have a look at another reason. Another reason to consider definitions within your program is different expressions and different words mean different things to different occupations. So consider the occupational setting and consider what you do. For instance, the word risk will mean one thing to an accountant, but something totally different to someone looking at it from a health and safety point of view. Another thing to consider is commonly used expressions. They will mean different things across the board. For instance, take the word dressing. It may mean the verb dressing. It may mean the part that goes over top of a door frame. It also may mean the thing you put on a wound to a first aid attendant. So different expressions mean different things. The other reason is technical terms need to be standardized. I want you to consider inspections and how confusing things could be if everybody had their own idea of what a tripping hazard was.
Spoiler alert!
Yeah, kind of a spoiler alert. Don't worry, we'll define it later on. Stick around. But it's important to make sure that you've defined all of your technical terms so that everything is understood and you have a constant standard throughout your program. Anyway, let's have a look at some more. Another very important consideration is English as a second language. It's important to make sure that you have your terms clearly defined because they can be absolutely foreign to your audience, and it's a fact. English may not be the first language of a lot of the workers within your workplace, so it's important to have good, clear definitions. Take, for instance, the notion of unsafe work. That could be a totally foreign concept because their country of origin may not have had that luxury. Another thing to consider is different terms might not translate so well. Think about near miss or close call. I'm sure both of those could be very confusing. Now, it's been my experience that people that when they don't understand something will often choose to ignore it. You don't want that.
Well, that would be bad.
Yes, definitely could be a bad thing. I wonder how fire drill would translate. Another reason that you want to consider having definitions within your program is that it might not just be you working on the program. It might be you and an admin assistant, or you and a team member, You might be working within a team, or hopefully you have the involvement of the Health and Safety Committee. That way, you have clear communication across the board, you have clear definitions, clear standards, and no confusion. It also provides your program some longevity and sustainability in case you move on and go somewhere else or get promoted within the organization and no longer have ownership over editing the program. Another good, clear reason to have definitions within your program. So here's some additional thoughts and some other things to consider regarding definitions within your health and safety program. If you're all only working in one jurisdiction, if you all speak the same language as your native tongue, and there's no cultural differences, if you all come from similar working backgrounds and you're going to emulate legislation right to a T, well, there's no need for definitions. But you know what?
Not likely.
That's likely not the case. Chances are you're going to need definitions. The other thing is, if you want to rise above the minimum requirements set out in legislation, you're likely going to need definitions. So how do you define them? How do you get them? Well, often the legislation will have definitions for you that you can emulate or adjust to meet your corporate needs. What about where there's not a definition available? Now, there's a good thing you can do is you can look for published expertise. Here's a good example. I talked about it earlier in the video. I talked about tripping hazard. I searched high and low. I've never had the opportunity to see one within a health and safety program. Not saying that they're not there. Some people have likely defined it, but I've never seen it. So I came across this from the Department of Housing and Urban Development in the United States regarding a tripping hazard. Their definition is this: it's a hazard caused by an abrupt change in a vertical elevation or horizontal separation on any walking surface along the normal path of travel. They've gone further to give examples and criteria that will further define the tripping hazard. It's a 3/4 inch or greater vertical difference on a walking surface, or a 2-inch horizontal separation perpendicular to the path of travel. You can go further and build a bit upon this by saying that a tripping hazard is also any temporary object or thing that's placed across or within the path of normal pedestrian travel or egress. Gives you the opportunity to further define it more, plus you have published expertise that you can rely on and use. Putting it all together and wrapping it up. Don't run away. Definitions are needed because you have to have clear communication. It matters. You want people to read and understand your program?
Why, yes, I do.
Then they have to know what you mean, plain and simple. Consider defining technical terms as well as just single words, like things like periodic inspection or competent person, qualified individual, things like that. You will need to drill down and define them further so they're better understood. How you format your definitions is going to be totally up to you. What you might want to consider doing is having a general subset of definitions within your program that apply to the whole program, and then keeping technical definitions within each section of your program where they apply. Don't be afraid to ask your stakeholders to confirm understanding. In fact, I'm hoping you'll be working closely with your Joint Occupational Health and Safety Committee. So if you like the video, do me a favor, just give me a click. Click that like video. It's actually down there, but click it. If you didn't like it, do me a favor, leave me a comment, or if you have thoughts on the video, leave me a comment. I appreciate all comments. Until we see each other again, do me a favor, think about safety and talk about safety, but do safety wherever you end up. Until we see each other again, bye for now.